Sorry about that little delay. Let's get that audio check in and get into it, because that's what we're about to do. We are about to get the business. Thank you guys for joining me. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Somebody said my sound's not good. How's that now? Somebody said the sound's weird. Audio not good. Man, it's always something, isn't it? Always something. All right. How's the sound now? Or uniformitarians are dumb. Absolutely. Okay. Tell me how it sounds like now. Still hearing feedback? Audio has a weird buzz. I don't like that. What are you guys talking about? What is going on here? This is what I get for unplugging my mic and then replugging it up. Okay. Sounds like I'm static feedback, man. I don't know what's going on. Normally my mic is real clear. Real pain in the ass. All right, I'm going to go in my settings and see what's going on. I hate to change the mic, but if I got to, I got to. All right, well, I'm on the hype mic. And you guys are saying it sounds weird, huh? It does. It is real sensitive. It is super sensitive. Let me know now. Sounds like a connection issue. Wow. Everything on my end is functioning. I don't know what's going on. Man, what a buzzkill. All right, you know what? All right, try this again. Let's try this again. While I drink out of my C3PO coffee. Let's try this again. I don't know what it was. All I did was turn everything off and turn it back on. Meanwhile, we've got some business to attend to. So you guys know I've been on the uniformitarian trip for a good while. Lately with my new discoveries on the Dark Age period, now I'm going through Fomenko's material. And while I agree that Fomenko was onto something, that yeah, there's been obfuscation of history. There isn't any missing time. This is the difference between Fomenko and I. I can account for the years. The calendars make absolute sense. There was a continuum, but there is about a 3.5, 4-year century period where we have almost nothing. And there's a reason for that. You guys know in the Archaix research, it was the appearance of a vapor canopy and everything that came with it. Yeah, you guys know we do not promote Ice Age in Archaix. Ice Age is completely theoretical. It relies you to make it forces too many assumptions, and which is really ridiculous because science is all about observed facts, but they're very hypocritical when they try to push their Ice Age theory. That's why there still isn't any scientific consensus how Ice Ages are even possible. They're still arguing among themselves. So yeah, when the volcanologists publish their data, they offend the paleobotanists. They say, oh, well, that can't be true because of this right here. And then when the paleobotanists come up with their theory as to how an ice age is possible, they offend the geologists. And the geologists publish their findings saying, oh, that can't be possible because of this right here. And this is what we get with the scientific apparatus as it stands today. A highly compartmentalized soup where the ingredients aren't allowed to come together to make anything of value. This is what we have. But I'm going to ask you today to put aside your brainwashing. I'm going to ask you to use the evidence of your senses and use what the good Lord gave you, which is a discerning mind. Today, we're going to put aside all this scientific mumbo jumbo, this brainwashing, this uniformitarian poison, which is no different than the faith of ancient religions. It's a modern religion. Science is a modern religion. It requires you to have more faith in things that are unsubstantial than even trying to believe in people who may have been deified as gods in the ancient past. What we are forced to accept to be true in order to follow the scientific paradigms is worse than any tenets that are put out by any religion today. Science is bullshit. We're going to see that here. You're going to see it with your eyes. You don't need scientific textbooks to reinterpret for you the world you're living in. All you need to do is see the facts. Once you see the facts, things begin to make sense. So we're going to talk about these tracks and what they really mean. And I promise you, you're going to see and understand things in this video you've never contemplated before. These tracks are not just in Malta. They've been found in several places, but they've been found in proximity to other things. And you won't find this anywhere. All these videos showing these tracks, all these books being published showing these tracks aren't showing you what's also there. So we're going to go through that in Archaix right now, because in Archaix, we are overturning that uniformitarian model one moron at a time. That's the only way we can do it, because the field is populated full of idiots that are all promoting this and don't even know what kind of toxifying poison, the soul-killing doctrine that they're foisting upon us. You know who they are. Not just the scientific world, but all these so-called truthers who are trying to give you the business and all these things. They wrap their own theories on ancient aliens, on Atlantis, on world history, on lost civilizations. Every one of these men continue to put out all this information, but they do it in uniformitarian dressings. They literally marry their theories to a scientific paradigms that are completely bogus. Graham Hancock was an expert at it. Randall Carlson still on YouTube doing it. Billy Karsten still shilling that uniformitarian model. Jimmy Corsetti uses Ice Age template as well. That's all uniformitarian. Matt LaCroix did it. It's a whole bunch of people that are using this system. Greg Braden's real bad. He's uniformitarian to the core. Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers, uniformitarian to the core. These might be good men, but why are you going to take spiritual information from someone who has given you such a toxifying, soul-killing doctrine as the uniformitarian model of history, which is a complete pyramid of bogus facts, each layering of the structure of this theory forces you to make assumptions about information and about history that have no basis in reality whatsoever. So before we go into this soul-killing doctrine of uniformitarianism, I'm going to show you the business. You draw your own conclusions, but do not practice exclusions. See what you see on the screen. I'll tell you where it's located. I'll describe the locations. And on your own, you can begin to develop a picture far better than anything the scientific world has prepackaged for you to perceive. This is a deep topic. It only starts with the tracks. So let's move on. Let's see what C3PO has to say about it. Thank you, Grendel Dark, for my little gift. This C3PO here, adding to my Star Wars collection of mugs. That's a Stormtrooper mug. There's a Darth Vader. There's a Darth Vader mug back here. I got a Jabba the Hutt mug somewhere. Oh, there he is. There's Jabba up there. Jabba the Hutt from Archaix, huh? So instead of me telling you what to perceive, let's look at these pictures together. The most popular ones in the world are in Malta. So let's begin in Malta. But I promise you, we're going to be going far and wide from Malta. Let me share my screen. Get straight into it. You got some surprises today. All right. There we go. You know what? Let's see. I'm going to put this over here so I can see the chat. Perfect. Marvelous. Marvelous. Well, this is Malta. Malta is a little bitty tiny. Well, it looks a little and tiny here. Way out here in the Mediterranean, we have Malta. Funny thing about Malta, it's really isolated way out here in the Mediterranean. And the fossil record is really curious about Malta. We'll talk about that later. But meanwhile, Italy is close by. Turkey is close by. Egypt is close by. You can't see it on the map right here, but you got Lebanon right here. Israel is right here. Northern Egypt. You got all of Libya, Northern Africa, Morocco. Everything is in this area of the world. Italy, France, and Spain. Remember I said this. Remember I named all these countries. But here's Malta right here in the middle of it. And you know, we've got the Giganteum Temple and the Hypatium and all kinds of underground, massive temples have been found on Malta. But so have these amazing tracks. So in the middle of nowhere in the Mediterranean meaning Middle Earth, we have these amazing tracks that are called cart ruts by the scientific establishment. They're called cart ruts by scientists. These tracks have been studied by many serious researchers, and they are found to be precise. They are uniform, meaning there is no doubt that some type of wheeled mechanism used these tracks for something. It may not have been wheeled. It may have been some other type of conveyance used. But what's interesting here is that you're going to have uniformitarian researchers, and they've already done it, visit these sites and then conclude that an ancient civilization carved these out. Oh, they made these. They carved these out. It's just as stupid as saying that Göbekli Tepe's many square acres, or I think they're up to like 500 square acres now. That the civilization before they left, because it was so holy, they decided to bury it. instead of just employing Occam's razor. Well, if it was buried with such fine silt and dirt, then it probably wasn't done by people. It was probably done in a diluvium mechanism. It probably would have been some temporal flooding, or maybe a whole bunch of water just fell out of the sky and scrambled all the surface materials and drowned it out. A lot of new things coming out about Göbekli Tepe. Yeah, a lot of new things, such as a nearby site. A nearby site is showing that civilization did continue, but something terrible had happened, because now all the Tepe sites couldn't even hold the pop. I mean, they were too massive for the little population that remained, and they were barely in survival mode. And they abandoned the large Tepe sites and they built some smaller ones. And everything, the tools were inferior. Their lifestyle was inferior. They were barely making it. New studies about the area around Göbekli Tepe are totally changing the old BS Graham Hancock, Jimmy Corsetti narratives. So dumb. So here's these cart ruts. This is what they're calling them. These are on Malta. These cart ruts they crisscross all over the main island, and many of them disappear into the side of a hill. There are parts of Malta that are broken off like cliffs, and the cart ruts go straight to the cliff and vanish, as if there's a whole piece of land missing. And yet there are many that go right underwater, and they're filmed by scuba divers continuing straight underwater. These cart ruts. Those were some badass carts. Here's this guy. I forgot his name. He's on Joe Rogan from time to time. So these cart ruts show evidence. There's more evidence just looking. Just look at the cart ruts. Look how there's a merger. Look how they merge. Look how they crisscross. No civilization came in here and carved these out. They crisscross. I'm looking at a vehicle. I am looking at the trace elements of a vehicle that passed over this area. And then another vehicle came from the left and passed over the tracks that were already here. And for whatever reason, the surface here turned to stone. But you can tell by looking at it, at one time it was like mud. You can tell by looking at it. It's all smooth angles. It's all smooth. And yeah, this was like soft material. And for the ruts to remain, uniform, for the ruts to have squared sides, means that this was not a gradual turning to stone. This mud turned to stone almost instantly. You'll see more pictures and you can make the assessment yourself. Yeah, these things go all the way underwater. They crisscross all over Malta. It is inexplicable. These are all on Malta. They're going straight into water. Here they are again. You can imagine any folding and buckling on the land surface. You can even imagine there's been an upheaval here. You can look at this and imagine that this was mud on a flat surface, but for some reason, just like the movie Dark City shows, areas of the world go up and areas of the world go down. Upheaval and subsidence. It is the history of the world. Catastrophism is the only mechanism that answers for all the anomalies of the historical record. Uniformitarian answers nothing. It only creates more problems. Look at this. Here's another clue that we're dealing with something not only man-made, but we're dealing with some type of conveyance of technological provenance. Here are tracks clearly defined with some type of, look at this track in the center. like whatever the vehicle was, its locomotion was from a single cog that gripped the ground, and it may have been angled, and it just and the cog spun, and it was the motor mechanism for whatever wheels were going through these, whatever wheels created these ruts. I don't believe it's a track. They're called tracks because that's what they look like, but I believe this is the leftover from a single vehicle. One single vehicle, when all this was mud, passed over all this. Its method of locomotion looks like it's in the center here, because this mud was so soft and wet. These tracks here are much deeper than most of the tracks we see. So the undercarriage of that vehicle was leaving something that was uniform. It left uniform pockmarks. It's very similar to what you see inside the Great Pyramid. It's very interesting here, what we're looking at. That very well could have been a central cog that gripped the ground and propelled it forward for its locomotion. I don't know. I'm just theorizing, but look how it's not the only one like that. You're going to see more. You're going to see more. Here it is again. More uniform tracks. They're equidistant. As far as they go, they're always equidistant. And this is all hard as stone. Every bit of this is petrified. That's why they call them fossil tracks. This is all Malta. We saw this picture a minute ago. Look how clearly defined the central cog is on the track. Look how clearly defined that is. Was that the locomotive? Was that what propelled the vehicle forward? I don't know. I'm just theorizing. Whatever it was. These are all petrified, turned to stone all over Malta, in the middle of the Mediterranean. They go all the way to the cliff edge. Malta looks like it's pretty beautiful. Here's some more. Here's more. You have to understand, Malta's been developed a lot, so we don't know how many of these have been lost to us. We no longer have them. Here's the crisscrossing effect again. Now, to my eye, I'm looking at sometime in the past. I'm looking at, for whatever reason, the entire surface became mud. For whatever reason. It could be volcanic. It could be a liquefaction. It could be seismic activity vibrating the entire top side of the world so much that everything was liquefied. I don't know. It could be that a vapor canopy had just dumped a tremendous amount of water and moisture all over the world. And for several days, the world was like mud until the mesosphere was completely empty, because as soon as that happened, there was no more atmospheric protection. It would have taken weeks, maybe months, for the atmosphere to build up the necessary layers of protection to protect people from the new sight in the sky, the burning disk, the sun. And the sun would have baked the entire surface of the world fast. So, the sun hadn't been seen in centuries. What I'm looking at here is a track that went one way, a vehicle went one way, and another vehicle very quickly went another way. We're looking at a panic. We're looking at vehicles crisscrossing, going and all. No one knows where to go, but they're just trying to get there. They're in vehicles. We see this panic in other things as well. We're going to visit that here. Here's another track right here going across Malta. Now, if it was an ordinary track in broken dirt and stones and all that, like the topsoil in Texas, it would be different. But it's not. These are uniform tracks that are fossilized. They are entombed, petrified perfectly into the surface of Malta. So whatever happened fast. Here's more tracks. This looks like one vehicle following another. See these double tracks here? That's from two different vehicles. Double tracks on the right here too. Right here on the right, you can see double tracks. So what you're looking at here is one vehicle following another. Are they on a track? No, they're just going through the mud, but they left 2 tracks behind them. There's that weird indentation in the center again. Like when this vehicle passed through, it was either super heavy and sank into the mud deeper than others. So the middle mechanism, which was evidently turning, to create that effect, it had to be turning, because it made an indentation, then it didn't. Then it made another one like a cog wheel. So that cog wheel could have been a scoop, a blade, something that was designed to move. This could have, when this happened, this entire area could have been like a floodplain, 2 or 3 feet deep of water, and the whatever vehicles they were like sleds with wheels. And this center deal was a scoop that was designed to propel both mud and water. I'm just theorizing, but I'm just theorizing based off what I'm looking at, because this did not take millions of years to fossilize. It didn't take hundreds of thousands of years to fossilize. It didn't even take 10 days to fossilize. Whatever did this with this how uniform this is, how perfect, no, this was instant. After the vehicle passed, something happened and baked this whole land surface. There's that sprocketing effect right there again. Oh, the pictures are going to get better. So there we are. Everything you saw is right here in this little bitty island of Malta, right here in the middle of the Mediterranean, in the middle of Spain and France and Italy and Turkey and Lebanon and Israel and Egypt and Libya, Mauritania, Morocco. That's what surrounds Malta. So in the Mediterranean is another island. It's called Sardinia. Sardinia is interesting. Gigantic human skeletons, human sarcophagi that are huge, underground temples. Sardinia has megaliths. It also has the round towers that have been uniquely found only in ancient Ireland. Sardinia has an interesting history. It also is in the Mediterranean. So Sardinia has been identified as one of the sea peoples in the Sea Peoples Federation that were allied against the Greeks and the Egyptians. They were listed by the Egyptians as Shardan, and the people of Shardan were a part of the Sea Peoples Federation that came from the Atlantic. They had joined them. They were a part of what the Egyptians called the conspiracy of the Isles, to be precise, because the Egyptians didn't like the fact that so many Mediterranean cultures had joined these strangers from the Atlantic in the story of Atlantis and the invasion of the Sea Peoples. Well, Sardinia was one of them. They have a very rich megalithic history. But on Sardinia, we also have these damn ruts, cart ruts. There's a lot. I only got a couple pictures. Because once you see the cart ruts on Malta, you've seen them everywhere. But they're all over Sardinia as well. So the same uniform tracks, uniform distance. This is now 2 different geographical locations, many hundreds of miles apart. But we have tracks, and they are petrified into stone. They are on the surface. You don't have to dig to find them. They're on the surface, and the tracks are uniform. Here's three data points that you need to remember. And the distance between the tracks are uniform. So are we dealing with an ancient vehicle that was used in multiple locations of the ancient world? Because it wasn't just Malta, it's now on Sardinia. What kind of vehicles were being manufactured in the ancient world that would have provided uniform tracks that would later be petrified? Again, we have tracks crisscrossing here. So that's Sardinia, also in the Mediterranean. But also local to the area is Turkey, where the underground cities of Derinkuyu and the 58 other underground facilities and cities have been located, where all the Tepe sites like Göbekli Tepe are found. Turkey, where Cappadocia is, ancient kingdom of Phrygia. Turkey, where we also have all the Huyuk sites like Catalhuyuk. Turkey's really interesting, but Turkey also has a bunch of these cart ruts. Look at them. Look at this. Again, the tracks are uniform. Again, they're petrified into the surface. Again, you don't have to dig for them. They're on the top. Ancient tracks. This is all Turkey. Oh, that's a good clear one there. Do you see the common denominator here? Why aren't the tracks in these three different locations, why aren't they on different types of topography? Why does the surface always look like it has very smooth contours? There's only one answer for that. We're dealing with a mechanism, moisture, water. We're dealing with silts. We're dealing with something that can petrify fast, but there are no jagged rocks. There are no jagged boulders, no jagged outcrops anywhere at these locations where these tracks are. These tracks are always petrified into surfaces that are very smooth, as if they were just muddy. A vehicle just passed by, left in its muddy wake, it left these tracks, and before the mud can just come in and fill the tracks, the whole land surface gets petrified. This is the third location with all these denominators. Look how smooth, look how rounded all these contours are. Remember, this has been my mantra since the beginning of my channel. It only takes us 200 years to go from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. Been saying that for years. Here's tracks over here going over this. Now you have to understand, you see how these tracks are. This does not mean that this is what the land surface looked like when those tracks were made. It doesn't. Well, we know one thing in Archaix, we have documented a lot of subsidence events and upheaval events. So this could have been flat when these vehicles were tearing ass, trying to get away from whatever they saw in the sky, whatever was coming. They were trying to move, or it could have been just normal work. It could have just been normal work, labor, recreation. But to me, we are looking at the evidence of ancient humans that were advanced enough to have vehicles. What you don't see are animal hoofs. What you don't see is any evidence of draft vehicles. No. But with those cog marks, what you see is evidence of locomotion. Independent locomotion that's not attached to any animal that's pulling these vehicles. An animal would have left tracks too. Here's a track right here, and somebody put this little tablet in there. Somebody put this little tablet thing for perspective. Here's a track right there. Look at that. Look how uniform that is. Yeah. The theory that these were formed over thousands of years by thousands and hundreds of thousands of carts being pulled through this area, that idea is untenable. It is completely ridiculous. It is a uniformitarian attempt to basically foist upon anybody who will buy into it a false narrative. There's no way this track was created by the passage of thousands of vehicles. It's too uniform. thousands of times, those vehicles would have rubbed, there would have been too much attrition on the sides to where it would have been more like 45-degree angles, not right angles. This was a single or a pair of wheels, one after the other, that went through here right before it was petrified. The stone was petrified. It's hard to see those tracks. We've already seen that one before. So this is how AI is being used to basically create the narrative. Yeah, the establishment there. Yeah, AI is everywhere now online. When you Google things, they are really trying to hide a lot of stuff. And AI is not an independent source of information. AI is promoting uniformitarian and scientific establishment and politically correct narratives. AI is pre-programmed to go with the controllers. The Turkey cart ruts refers to the ancient tracks carved into the bedrock of Turkey's Frisian Valley, which are thought to be thousands of years old, formed by the repeated passage of heavy wooden carts. You've already been lied to in this statement, because these aren't on bedrock. Bedrock is granite or rhyolite or diorite, and that's not what this is. This is sedimentary. You've already been lied to. And sedimentary rock is created almost instantly with heat. It's just like putting a wet clay tablet in a kiln and baking it. This isn't bedrock, but the reason they get away with calling it bedrock is because it faces the sky and it has no topsoils on it. There's none of that here. These deeply grooved ruts provide significant archaeological evidence of early transportation and trade networks, though their precise origins and purposes remain a subject of ongoing scholarly debate. So how in the hell can you even say they were for trade networks? They freestyle, guys. They freestyle. All right, so just showing you that little clip. So we've seen tracks from Malta, Sardinia, Turkey. Oh my God, let's check out the United States. How about the great state of Arizona? Arizona has the exact same tracks with the same distance between the tracks. Absolutely uniform. These pictures could have been taken on Malta, even though Malta has different plants and no cactus. See the cactus down here. This is Arizona, where we also find the same tracks. Beautiful Arizona right here. Here's the tracks. These aren't in the dirt. These are petrified into the very stone, what they would call basement rock, because it faces the sky. It has no topsoil whatsoever, but it's not basement rock. Beautiful Arizona cactus right there on the side. Well, what just happened? There it is. Arizona cactus right there on the side. That is not Malta, my friends. This is Arizona. You can get online and you can see more pictures of the Arizona tracks. Yeah, what are they doing in Arizona? Look how defined that track is. We're almost looking at a double track. We're looking at one vehicle that went through this, and then a vehicle came behind it. And the vehicle that came behind the first vehicle is the one that laid that super definitive right angle track right there that's in shadow. The second vehicle. And then right after the second vehicle passed over this area, this land was baked. So incredible. Arizona has the same tracks as Turkey, Sardinia, and Malta. So we shouldn't be surprised that one of Arizona's neighbors, called Colorado, the state of Colorado, also has the same tracks. But because it's Colorado and because it's the United States, Our uniformitarian morons tell us that these are from the 1850s. These are wagon ruts. They're made because a whole bunch of wagons, a bunch of those old prairie wagons, you know, the ones with the covering on the top. You know, you ever heard of the Donner Party? Those wagons were going west, and they built San Francisco, and they, before the railroad was sending people out there, and these wagons, they went through Colorado, and they just thousands of wagons full of good American people going west. It was manifest destiny. And those wagons, they made these ruts you see going through Colorado. As a matter of fact, it's so dumb. I'm embarrassed even conveying that stupid ass theory. But that's exactly what you're told by legitimate scientists today. The ruts found all over Colorado are from the wagon trains. It's absolutely dumb. It's so dumb. So these wagon trains, guys, you got to understand, Americans are awesome. I know if you're not American, you get offended. I get it, but Americans are awesome. They're so awesome that in the 1850s, they built wooden wagons that went up the side of mountains. They were beasts. They could have went around the mountains, but why? Why? They're Americans. Manifest destiny. They're going west. Not scared of no mountain. So they went up the side of mountains with their wagon trains. And there must have been enough of them to do it in order to leave those ruts there going straight up those cliff faces. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's crazy. So these wagons went over the hardest parts of the areas of Colorado. Instead of just staying in the flatlands and going by the valleys in the hill country, they went over the mountains. Yeah, man. That's the type of people that the West of America was founded by. Yeah. Here's the proof right here. Wagon ruts right here in Colorado. Blows my mind that tourists are told this by local at these state parks, by local, geologists and state park officials, and they just nod their heads. Oh, wow, yeah, that's badass. I wonder if we hang around and look around a little bit, maybe we can find some arrowheads, because if there was wagon trains here, I bet you there was engines that were shooting at them. You lose IQ points. Listen to that stupid shit. So dumb. So, Malta, Sardinia, Turkey, Arizona, Colorado. How about Texas? Specifically, Austin, Texas. Right outside of Austin, Texas, in Bull Creek, we've got this. We've got wagon ruts. Well, we've got them going under forest, in the hills, disappearing into the ground, coming back up. It is amazing. And they're fossilized, just like Arizona, just like Colorado, Malta, Sardinia, and Turkey. The tracks are uniform, right here in the middle of the state of Texas. Here's another dumb stew. It's so dumb. So I don't know who this guy is. He's saying, who made these? And then he puts on his thumbnail, carved into solid rock. Carved into solid rock. I wish I knew who that was. I really do. Because I would not be lenient. Publicly, I would handle that. Carved into solid rock. I bet you believe they deliberately buried Göbekli Tepe in the other 40 Tepe sites too. You must be Jimmy Corsetti's brother. Absolutely ridiculous. Uniform tracks. Multiple vehicles here. It could be the same vehicle going one way and then realize, oh crap, it's the apocalypse. We're not going to get nowhere that way. Let's go back this way again. We don't know. We just know there's two tracks here. That's all we know. We can only judge things by their effects. What is the effect here? The effect is that 5 different locations in the world have now shown uniform tracks, equidistant, and they are fossilized into the surface of the world, and there's no topsoil there. It's all facing the sky. And we have morons that are saying that people are carving these. So dumb. I guess they went underwater and carved them too. Here's more right here. Uniform tracks. So this changes everything about the ancient world. It changes everything. If these are evidence of vehicles that had their own locomotion, because none of these tracks, not one, shows any evidence of draft animals. Because there's no way a wheeled mechanism can pass over wet, muddy ground. And if it's being pulled by draft animals, whether they're aurochs, whether they're oxen, whether pygmy goats, it doesn't matter what they are. They're going to leave their own prints behind, but they didn't. These tracks are devoid of any type of draft animal evidence. Therefore, we're dealing with man-made vehicles that had their own locomotion. We're dealing with cars. We're dealing with trucks. We're dealing with all-terrain vehicles. Why is it so hard to believe? I'm going to show you things in this video that are going to put that into perspective. It also changes the entire ancient world. I've been telling you guys from the beginning that the pre-flood world, before the vapor canopy collapsed the first time, was technologically advanced. That's why we have 0 writings from that world, because the medium that they were preserving information on was technological. And after the technological infrastructure collapsed, there was nothing preserved. It was totally gone. Destruction was perfect. That is why after the cataclysm, we recorded everything on tablets. But we use clay tablets with styluses like this, to write on the tablets, because our children and our children's children remembered the tales of the world we told them. We had tablets. In Sumerian, there were the Mies. We had tablets, and we used styluses, and we reported information, and we made heavy equipment move, and people saw pictures, and we communicated to each other with it. And 200 years later, they're burning tablets of clay, recording with reed styluses information, the same way that they heard that their forefathers did it. But the tablets of their forefathers were like God-like. They could do all kinds of things. Remember, guys, history is not linear, it's cyclical. And I know a lot of you have problem processing this, but we're heading straight toward that world again. We're already at the point of doing everything on tablets and on cell phones. And when this infrastructure completely collapses 200 years later, when we're under a whole nother reset cycle, it is our offspring that will be putting back the world together, not even believing that the tracks we left behind were from vehicles. Yeah, we're not in a linear construct. We're in a construct that is unfolding everything that we perceive in cyclical fashion. That means the more we study the ancient past, the more we understand what's coming in the near future. The more we study the near future, we understand what happened in the old world. You're looking at vehicle tracks. Here's one that came in from the left. It looks like an older one is right here on the right. An older one came in from the right, or came this way, and then another one crisscrossed it. The reason I'm saying, because it looks more defined, like it might be a couple hours, a couple days newer. So here's an AI overview. What are often called mystery cart tracks in the Austin, Texas area are actually geological features with 2 distinct origins: modern wagon ruts and genuine 115 million year old dinosaur footprints. These 2 types of tracks are sometimes confused and conflated, but they are found in different locations and have very different explanations. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Found in the exact same sky-facing layer with no topsoil. We have wagon ruts and we have dinosaur footprints, both of them located at Austin, Texas. Jason, are you saying that there were cars 65 million years ago? No, not saying that, dumbass. No, dinosaurs aren't 65 million years ago. Only uniformitarian idiots would ever promote such an idea. And they're more than welcome to come on my channel and debate this, because all these relative dating methods have all been disproven. They are comical. Yeah, and when you logically chase each one of these uniformitarian tenets down, you find out that the people that push them have more faith in the scientific dogma than a Christian does that he is a son of the Most High God. Because science is nothing but religion when you break it down to its lowest common denominators. It's all supposition and assumption. And there's more evidence to back the religions of the world than there is the scientific paradigm of uniformitarianism. Austin, Texas, right here. So these are pretty interesting. I mean, Malta, Sardinia, Turkey. Then on the other side of the world, Arizona, Colorado, Austin, Texas. Wait a minute. Have we been lied to about the Oregon Trail? We've got this long convoluted story about the Trail of Tears, about the Oregon Trail and how much it was used and all that. Is that a cover story? Because I'm going to show you something in this video that calls into question that whole narrative. This is Wyoming, officially called the Oregon Trail. It's part of the state park. Here are the same ruts you see everywhere else. In the great state of Oregon, petrified into the surface materials that it looks so smooth. No jagged boulders sticking out, no broken rock. Everything is smooth, rounded contours, just like Malta, just like Sardinia, just like Turkey, Arizona, Colorado, Austin, Texas. Look at this. The Oregon Trail right here in Wyoming. Isn't that something? That's not a very good picture. It's all blurry. Look at this. Even this guy's baffled. He's like, damn. Thousands of prairie wagons did this. It's amazing. He's probably trying to find the hoof prints. He's trying, because they went with their horses, their goats, their cattle, their pigs. He's probably out there right now trying to find all those. He's like, damn. I see how thousands of wagons could have made these tracks, but I ain't seen no animal, no hoof prints. What's going on? Oh, it's so crazy, guys. It is so, the uniformitarian model is so crazy. And that's why, you guys, I know some of you don't get my passion. You don't get it. You just don't. Some of you don't like the call outs. I'm sorry, man, but you know what? They're absolutely necessary, because you just don't understand. All these theories that Graham Hancock attaches his stuff to, Randall Carlson copies Graham Hancock, and yeah, he's got some of his own ideas too. Ben Davidson, though, he's borrowing all NASA's crypto data. I call it crypto because it's hidden. It's not real. It's all made up. So yeah, it's all this X flare and solar flare activity, and 100% of all that data comes from NASA. You already know NASA's just an intelligence agency. It has nothing to do with space at all. And all this, the whole truth community looks up to people. They just don't even know. Graham Hancock doesn't want to debate anybody because he can't. His whole life is a lie. It's a lie. He's never been an expert in ancient civilizations and ancient history and none of that. No, he was just an editor for The Economist until probably the CIA gave him a boost, gave him a bunch of manuscripts, gave him a research team, told him to take off. And he came up with this whole uniformitarian model. He bridged a whole community of truthers who were interested in ancient civilizations and ancient anomalies and ooh parts, and he literally slaved them to the uniformitarian interpretation of history. And then he's got his copycats, people who have never brought anything new into the field, but only copy and parrot other people. You guys know I call them barf parrots. Enter Billy Carson. Enter Matt LaCroix. Enter what's his name? Jimmy Upsetti. Yeah, you know, it's Jimmy Upsetti because he's always getting upset by Archaix. Every time I come out with something, Jason of Archaix disproves it. It's crazy. So crazy, dude. I'm going to continue. I'm never going to back down, guys. It's just never going to happen. I'm going to come out with more and more information, always showing you the uniformitarian crap is bullshit. It's all BS. And all these so-called truthers that are marrying the uniformitarian soul-killing doctrines with whatever their pet theories are, I'm going to call them out. I'm not going to stop. There's a bunch of them I need to call out that I haven't got to yet, but I'm not going to stop. If you're promoting uniformitarianism, I'm going to back you up into a corner until you either just get quiet like all these cowards are doing, or you actually step up to the plate and then I'll humble you in a public debate. There's no other way around it. You're either going to be quiet and take a back seat, or you're going to get out there on the battlefield and you're going to find out real quick just how sharp my sword is. Because there's no backup in me. This is a soul-killing doctrine. That's what it is. It's why it was invented. It's why the world pushes uniformitarianism. There is only one other model of history. It's catastrophism. And in catastrophism, every anomaly of the ancient world is answered. In uniformitarianism, all we have are more mysteries, more things that are unanswered, and a bunch of fantasy narratives like Ice Age. Every bit of it. Vapor canopy cycles are the only thing that accounts for all the anomalies of the Ice Age. The world was never cold, guys. It was never cold like that at all. There's a reason the poles are covered in ice today, and it only happens in days. It is a cycle. There is a reason why we have 500-year-old maps that show perfect Antarctica and other areas that are under a mile to 2 miles high ice caps today. There is a reason for that. This is a cycle, and it happens repetitively. So here is more tracks in Wyoming, and this poor bastard here is still trying to figure out where all the horse and cow prints are. This is the Oregon Trail. Oh, there's more of the Oregon Trail right there. Can you imagine? I mean, they had so much flatter territories. Why would you go through the mountains of Wyoming? 1850s, the Oregon Trail has become fossilized. This is the narrative that they push in the state parks. So that's the Oregon Trail. This is why the great state, that's the great state of Wyoming. So, oh yeah, we still got the juicy to go through. We're not done. And I hope you guys share this video far and wide, especially with all. Yeah, I'm not taking nothing back no more. It's, a shill is a shill. Simple as that. You can blame your education. I was just miseducated. I was okay. Well, the correct information's out in the field now. So if you're not willing to go back and rescind and say, hey man, you know what? I probably got these things wrong. Now that I know about all this, you can still provide value with the research you do have. Just repackage it under the correct paradigm, which is catastrophism. If you keep using uniformitarian models, you're a shill. It's simple as that. There is no other way around that. There's no other way. It's ridiculous, man. And if you notice, Joe Rogan only has guests that promote uniformitarianism. Pay attention, guys. Pay attention to his guests. Every guest on there that comes up with ancient civilizations and model, they're always going to promote uniformitarian principles because they don't care what you know about Tiwanaku. They don't give a damn what you know about Malta, the Hypogeum. They don't care about what you know about the open copper mines of Michigan, Lake Michigan. They don't give a damn about Pyramid Lake if you really know that that structure's down there or not, or why that flooded that area. They don't care if you know about the wooden fossilized ships that have been found in California's Death Valley. They do not care if you know that outside of Bern, Switzerland is a wooden ship underneath a mountain found by miners. They do not care if you know that there is a whole city substrate that was located 2 miles below Heavener, Oklahoma, in a coal mine. They do not care. As long as the individual who is bringing you this information is sticking to uniformitarian dating. As long as they're doing that, they don't care what you know about. They don't care if you know about all the secrets. They don't give a damn if you know that there are over 300 documented stone cities underneath the waters of the Mediterranean. They do not care. They do not care if you even understand that the entire Black Sea was created in a day and that used to be a great giant freshwater lake. They don't care if you know about all the villages that have been found underneath the Black Sea. They do not care. As long as the presenters are always presenting the uniformitarian model, which involves ice ages and hundreds of thousands of years and millions of years and hundreds of thousands of years to fossilize things, as long as, and that humans came from primate hominids and all this crap that Leakey put out there, like pre-pottery, Neolithic, which is all subjective and arbitrary. As long as you believe in the radioisometric breakdown, the isotopic breakdown of parent elements into daughter elements and their complete perfect stability over 500 million years. As long as you believe that fantasy narrative, they don't care what you know. As long as you stick to the soul-killing idea of a chronological history of our world that removes God from the equation. They don't care. They don't care. Those are the type of guests you will always see on Joe Rogan. It's the ones that are promoting the ideas that remove the oversoul from the equation. That's it. I'm not going to be one of them. I'm going to call all those guests out continually. All right. So what do we got here? Malta, Sardinia, Turkey, Arizona, Colorado, Austin, Texas, Wyoming, the Oregon Trail. That's amazing, isn't it? Isn't it amazing that these tracks have been found at all these locations? Equally amazing is the fact that Malta is in the middle of all those countries I mentioned earlier. Near Malta on that side of the world, we've got Spain, we've got France, you've got Libya, Egypt, Israel, you have the Arabian Peninsula, ancient Mauritania, North Africa, Morocco. It's all right there. Malta's in the dead middle of all that. Turkey's right there to the north where the other tracks were seen. Armenia. So these tracks, vehicle tracks that have been found, are in the same layer facing the sky with no topsoil as these dinosaur tracks in Arabia. What's going on? Didn't have to excavate to find these. They're facing the sky. What was it? What was this dinosaur going when these tracks got petrified? Here's another one right here. Do you know what this photo is? This photo is a dinosaur track from Beit Zayit right outside of the city of Jerusalem, facing the sky. This is a three-toed dinosaur footprint from the Israel city of Beit Zayit right outside of the city of Jerusalem, right here. Look at these fossil human footprints from Spain bordering the Mediterranean. These are fossil human footprints. Fossil human footprint. Look at this footprint here. The whole bottom of the footprint is packed with seashells. He must have been running. Something was going on, because right after he passed over this muddy area, when he pulled his foot out, that whole ground just turned petrified, turned to stone. This three-toed dinosaur footprint was found in the top, in the top, facing the sun, in Morocco, northern Africa. Not far at all from the tracks that were found fossilized at Malta. So here's more dinosaur footprints. They're kind of hard to see because of the way they photographed them, but here's more dinosaur footprints in Morocco. Dinosaur footprints uncovered in Egypt's eastern desert. That's pretty close to Malta, right there. More dinosaur footprints. A massive dinosaur footprint discovered in Lebanon. Look at that. This dinosaur footprint was discovered in Lebanon, and it'll at I don't know if Bawaba. Hopefully it doesn't get bombed. But there it is. Massive dinosaur footprint right there in Lebanon, in the top. Here's one right here in Puglia, Italy. Right there in the smack dab middle of the Mediterranean, really close to Malta. This is supposed to be Jurassic, 65 million years ago, facing the sky. Imagine that. All right, so here's Trentino Alto in Italy. Dinosaur prints. Look at that. Look at this. Look at it. This was mud. It petrified. And remember, the petrification process, according to uniformitarian model, is very rare. It is not ordinary. It is not common for fossilization to occur. There has to be very special circumstances. This is according to the uniformitarian model. And yet we find them everywhere. Hell, we found tire tracks fossilized. Hike on the Dinosaurs Trail, Trentino, Italy. Real close to Malta, right here. Guys, they're not digging 10 feet down. They're not digging 50 feet down to find this. It's on the surface, just like the vehicle tracks. Here's the location of main sites with fossil human footprints in Italy. Look at that. There's 7 different sites. 7 different sites that have fossil human footprints in Italy. The ones in the south are real close to Malta. This is in Spain. Here's another 3-toed dinosaur print in Spain. Spain is Mediterranean. The coasts of Spain are in the Mediterranean Sea. This is also Spain. Right there on the surface. You don't have to dig for them. They're right there on the surface. There's your dinosaur footprints. Here's the deal I was telling you about. Real dinosaur footprints at Beit Zayit, outside of Jerusalem in Israel. These are the only dinosaur footprints to have ever been discovered in Israel. I'm pretty sure there's more. Quit bombing everything. You might find some stuff. So, Malta, where the fossilized tracks are located, Malta is surrounded by archaeological sites that are on the surface. You don't have to dig for them. Facing the sky, on smooth, you didn't see no broken, tortured landscape. No, on smooth area that looks like it could have been mud, but it's as hard as stone. And it's all right there around the Mediterranean, just like those tracks on Malta. So it's not an anomaly. It's not an anomaly at all, because Sardinia is also in the Mediterranean. And Sardinia has also produced dinosaur footprints, a different species of dinosaur. But there's dinosaur tracks fossilized at Sardinia as well. There's some more. So it begs the question, Is it possible? Is it possible that the dinosaur fossils are from 65 million years ago? Cool. So we're going to say that there was 65. We're going to say that there was like 64.5 million years between the dinosaur footprints and the fossils of the tracks, and yet they're in the same layer facing the sky. That's uniformitarian nonsense. If the dinosaur footprints are 65 million years ago, then the tracks are 65 million years ago. But I'm not willing to make that leap because the uniformitarian model has never made its case that dinosaurs became extinct 65 million years ago. It is based on a whole bunch of assumptions. And the very fact, as I'm going to show in this video, we've seen them recently, I've showed them, the very fact that American peoples in the Dark Ages period have figurines that are dinosaurs anatomically correct means that they were seeing and living among them. They even have figurines of humans interacting with dinosaur type creatures. The entire history of the world that we've been told is absolutely false. Completely false. There is no way Native American tribes could have anatomically represented these creatures so perfectly and they had not lived and breathed with them. Why have these creatures in pictographs, in cave paintings, and in ornaments? Why put them on your totem poles if they weren't around? Why have all kinds of traditions and legends about fighting them if they weren't around? Yeah, it's not our excuse me. It's not that we have massive gaps in our knowledge. No. We have massive gaps in our intelligence. People will believe anything that they're told to believe without processing the information. We'll get to it though. I digress. That's Sardinia. So Sardinia is covered in tracks, but it's also got dinosaur footprints. Turkey was covered in tracks. As I showed you several pictures from Turkey where we had those uniform cart ruts. What else is in Turkey? Well, fossilized human footprints are in Turkey. Dinosaur prints are in Turkey. Look, they're facing the sky, guys, right here. They're right there in the surface. And it looks like it was pretty smooth mud to me. So if Malta, the Mediterranean, Sardinia, and Turkey on that side of the world, human footprints, dinosaur footprints, and prairie wagon tracks are all petrified way over there in the Mediterranean. Over here in America, those same prairie wagon tracks are all over Arizona. But also in Arizona, we've got dinosaur footprints on the surface everywhere. Everywhere in Arizona. Dinosaur footprints. Dinosaur footprints. Right here. That three-toed dinosaur wasn't even big. I've seen comparisons with that foot. This creature might have been 10, 11 feet tall, probably a herbivore. Probably wasn't even scared. They're probably everywhere, and humans walked around, weren't even scared of them. Human footprints all over Arizona. Yeah, fossilization is so rare. Why are we finding them all on the surface? Dinosaur footprints. That looked like it would have been mud. You're going to tell me that was there for, 30,000 years undisturbed so they could fossilize so perfectly? Come on, man. Uniformitarianism is so dumb. Here it is again. Arizona, dinosaur. This is all Arizona dinosaur footprints. Newly discovered fossil footprints show humans were in North America thousands of years earlier. You don't know what time it is. These are on the surface. You have no idea what the dating is at all. Check it out. Here's where your gaslighting comes in. Human footprints near Ice Age Lake suggest surprisingly early arrival in the Americas. You don't know nothing. All you got is human footprints right there on the surface. Everything else is rhetoric. Everything else is pure narrative building. So dumb. Fossilized Arizona human footprint. That's a pretty good mold too. Yeah, man, these are really clear. Real clear. Arizona. So we got the tracks, dinosaur footprints, human footprints. We got all this all over the Mediterranean. Malta, Sardinia, Turkey, now Arizona on the opposite side of the world, but also in Arizona. On the surface, you do not have to dig for it. Facing the blue sky, on the surface of Arizona, are vast petrified forests. Oh my God, there go my dogs. Petrified trees everywhere. Look at this. It's petrified forest. What in the hell happened to the surface to make the trees turn to stone? The tracks in Arizona are on the surface. The dinosaur footprints are on the surface. The human fossilized footprints are on the surface. The petrified national forest that I've been to. I did a video from there on YouTube. I visited it in Arizona when I went to the giant crater too. All on the surface. All petrified. All turned to stone. Look at this. Petrified forest everywhere. Arizona is covered with fossil wood. Beautiful fossil wood. Some of that fossil wood turns into semi-precious stone. I've seen pieces that were pure agate. I'm telling you guys, what we've been told about the history of the world isn't true at all. At all. And anybody trying to educate you that's still marrying their theories to the uniformitarian model, you should call into question everything else they've tried to tell you as well. You can take that to the bank. So we can leave Arizona and we can go straight into Colorado where we saw all those other tracks, because Colorado is going to give us a bunch of dinosaur tracks in the same layers found in the fossil tracks of the vehicles, the wagon train, the 1850s prairie wagons. So here we got dinosaurs right here in Colorado. What? This is what you're looking at here is the longest tracks, contiguous tracks of dinosaurs found in the world. It's right here in Colorado. Now, there are other places like Glen Rose that may have more dinosaur tracks. I don't know if Glen Rose is. There's another place I'm about to show you in Wyoming. But what this is the longest contiguous petrified dinosaur tracks in the world. Unbroken tracks that go for a long period of time. This is in Colorado. These are pretty famous. Here it is. We're dealing with the same situation, guys. It's a smooth surface with rounded contours. It looks like it could have been mud. It's facing the sky. It's on the top, and it's all turned to stone. It's petrified. How do we know it wasn't stone when these dinosaur footprints were laid down? Well, I shouldn't have to answer this, but I'm going to. Because none of these tracks would have ever appeared if the ground was hard. So something happened right after these tracks appeared here. Again, look at this. This is petrified rock. But it looks like mud. Look at it. It looks like it's wet. Everything is so smooth. When it was flash burned, when it was exposed to intense heat, it baked just like a tablet in an oven. Just like a cuneiform or clay tablet put into a kiln. It baked. See this girl here? She's sitting there wondering. This girl right here, she's sitting there wondering. She's like, wow. So when I look at all the cart ruts, I see the cart ruts with no animal hooves. How did they move? But when I come over here, I see all the animal hoofs, but there's no cart ruts. How did they do that? Yep. You literally have people that, they just can't process. They just can't process anything. Yeah, this is a picture I was showing you earlier. They got helicopter tours that will take you over the longest continuous dinosaur tracks. Or this is drone footage. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's pretty famous. But I don't care about the dinosaur tracks. I'm just talking about these are where also the prairie wagon tracks are. So the dinosaur tracks are like 40 to 65 million years old. But nearby in the same layer facing the sky, we have petrified wagon tracks from the 1850s. And for some reason, there's no hoof marks, there's no cattle, there's nothing but tracks. This is what you're made to believe. This is what you're told at the state parks. Can you see how moronic that theory is? That the Oregon Trail was made by cart ruts? Is cart ruts from the 1800s? Can you see how ridiculous that is? It defies the imagination that people would buy into that narrative at all. You're right. Absolutely, Jeffrey Bailey. You're absolutely right, man. Never underestimate the effectiveness of their mind control. Propaganda methods. Most are trauma-based mind-controlled zombies. I agree with that, but even more so, I'm going to go into it further. The uniformitarian model is promoted in the toy sections that kids go to as children. It's promoted in kindergarten. It's promoted in cartoons before children even get to go to school. Dinosaurs 65 million years ago, taken out by a rock from the sky. Two ideas that are completely antithetical to the entire history of the world, because we've never had anywhere in the history of the world where a space rock created any of these craters. Every one of these craters in the world are caldera, and they are created when an area is underwater and subsurface pressure explodes forward on the bottom of a seabed. That's exactly what the Archaix structure is too in the Sahara. It's exactly what the Arizona meteor crater is. It's not a meteor. That's why they inundate you with all this NASA programming when you go to the tourist shop, and when you go through the walk-in museum at Meteor Crater, Arizona. It's nothing but NASA stuff, and NASA has nothing to do with this place at all. Anybody who has driven through Arizona knows that you are driving through an ancient seabed. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy what we're programmed to believe. Absolutely. So that's Colorado, the dinosaur prints in Colorado. But you already know we get to Texas, and we're going to find dinosaur prints. We're going to find dinosaur prints in Texas. We're real close because Glen Rose is real close to Austin, but Austin has its own dinosaur prints, as we showed earlier. But Glen Rose, Texas has and the Paluxy River has a bunch of dinosaur prints and human footprints. So Texas has those tracks too. And it looks like the same thing. Fossilized mud on facing the sky. Yeah, man. This is Texas. Real close to where this is one of the greatest discoveries of all time. Glen Rose, Texas is so proud of this. One of the greatest discoveries of all time. What you're looking at is absolute proof that the uniformitarian model is total BS. This right here actually supports all the stuff we found out about Native American tribes and how they perfectly represented dinosaur type creatures accurately. Because what you're looking at here is a human footprint that was already on the ground when this dinosaur stepped on it. This is what you're looking at here. Before this was found, uniformitarians had already dated that layer of fossilized, that fossilized layer of rock was already dated to the Cretaceous period, like 45 million years ago. Famous discovery. Here are giant human footprints found with dinosaur tracks in Texas. I'm telling you, man, I don't think humans were scared of these. Remember the hyperbaric chamber in Glenrose and what the scientists told me. I did a video about it. They told me that they were really shocked to find what happened to rattlesnakes that were raised in a high pressure environment. Yeah, they increased the atmospheric pressure in the chamber, and they bathed them in the blue ultraviolet light that would have come through a vapor canopy. No sunlight. And rattlesnake venom is not poisonous when the rattlesnakes are raised in a high pressure environment. It's the low pressure with low oxygen that we get today that makes the rattlesnake venom extremely toxic to humans. But in a vapor canopy environment, rattlesnakes aren't poisonous. I don't think humans feared hardly any dinosaurs in the vapor canopy periods. This is all Texas. Remember, we're talking about the surface now. These fossils are all found on the surface or within a few inches of the surface. Same thing as the tracks. The tracks go almost 12 inches deep in some places. So we're talking about the same layers here facing the sky as the tracks. I'm only showing you dinosaur and human footprints from the areas the tracks were found. Yeah, human footprints and dinosaur prints have been found all over the world. But I've restricted this video to show you only those that are around the areas where the tracks were found. It's crazy. So we get to Wyoming. Oh, man. The Oregon Trail goes through Wyoming, and they're telling us that all those tracks that were perfectly uniform, like the ones on Malta, Turkey, Sardinia, Arizona, Colorado, and Texas, the ones in Wyoming are the same, except the ones in Wyoming were made by prairie wagons that were all going out west, and it was the Oregon Trail. This is what we're told. And yet nearby, dinosaur footprints in the same layer of strata. Uh-oh, more dinosaur footprints in Wyoming. What's going on? What's going on? Were the prairie wagons existing at the exact same time the dinosaurs were? Here's another footprint. You see the 3 toes right here, 3 talons. What was going on? Look how flat this was. It looks exactly like it was under about 6 inches to a foot of water. And these creatures walked through this area. And then that water vanished and every bit of this burned. This is a huge place in Wyoming where the tracks are found. The vehicle tracks. This is Red Gulch Dinosaur Track Site. Dinosaur tracks are all over Wyoming, but they're here in greater numbers. Look, the size of this dinosaur track. There's a lot of BS about the size of dinosaurs. People are oohed and awed. Oh, look at that Brachiosaurus, Seismosaurus, big now, man. Friendly herbivores, like the movie Baby in the 80s. Yeah, there was nothing violent about a bunch of these dinosaurs. They're just large reptiles and large amphibians. A bunch of them that were these Jurassic Park movies, man. It's a bunch of hyperbole in this stuff. We're not dealing with creatures that were that violent. Yeah, we're just not. Dinosaur tracks all over the state park right here in Wyoming. Dinosaur tracks in Wyoming near the Oregon Trail. Here's another one. You can barely see it, but there's another dinosaur track. Look at this. Are we being psyoped? Are we being psyoped? There's literally a game. There is literally a game that you can play. It is a role-playing game. Dinosaurs of the Wild West. The game is called the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail are track marks of a vehicle that we're told are prairie wagons. But in this game online called the Oregon Trail, Dinosaurs of the West, we have this. Are we being psyoped by AI? Are we being psyoped by uniformitarians? Is this a joke? Because this is exactly the case. As we'll see in this video. I've already shown it in 2 other prior videos. I've already shown all those pictures we have from Renaissance and medieval paintings that show long before dinosaurs were supposed to have existed and been classified in 1841, all the way to the 1890s, where the classification was pretty much fixed in stone. They were theorized about it as early as 1841 from the giant bones of reptiles and amphibians that have been found. But long before that, we already had paintings in Europe showing anatomically perfect brontosauruses. Are we being psyoped? That's Red Gulch. That's Red Gulch Dinosaur Track Site. That's in Wyoming, where the Oregon Trail is, which is nothing but vehicle ruts. Yeah, guys, it's so insane. This is such an amazing find. This dinosaur footprint stepping on this human footprint. It is such an amazing find. It's in Glen Rose Museum. Handprints. Here's handprints that have been x-rayed. Yeah, man. Human handprints. Here's a human footprint. Here's more footprints. You guys have seen this one. It's famous. Those are fossilized boot prints, and the boot stepped on a trilobite. You guys have seen that. Fossilized footprint. Another fossilized footprint. More fossilized footprints. They're everywhere. There's that famous one there. It's in the museum. It's in a glass case in the museum. That's it right there. There it is again. More fossilized footprints. There's my hand next to that footprint. So that's a normal human-sized footprint. That's at Glen Rose when I was there. Another fossilized footprint. More. These are almost all of these are from Texas, except for this. I think this is Utah. But yeah, this is famous. Fossilized boot prints. But you can't say they're from modern times because that's a trilobite. I've showed it in other videos where it blows up and shows the exoskeleton of the trilobite. Yeah, trilobites are supposed to be 500 million years old. It's all BS. Here's a shoe sole in Triassic Rock, Nevada. Triassic Rock, a petrified shoe sole. What? Come on, man. Here's those famous deals. Talks about the trilobite. Be 505 million years old if this is truly Cambrian. And they think it's Cambrian because it has a trilobite. More human footprints. Oh, there's the trilobite there. There's the famous shoe prints. This is a trilobite, supposedly extinct 240 million years ago. That's a trilobite crushed underneath this boot print, fossilized. It only takes us 200 years, guys, to go from horse and buggy to Hadron Collider. Do not believe in any of this BS 240 million year old crap. It's all garbage. It's all fantasy made up BS, uniformitarian garbage. Dinosaur prints and footprint and human footprints. That's a good one there. Big human, little human. There it is right there. Well, this vapor canopy is going to fall anyway. We're all probably, we never made it to the mountains. There ain't no place underground. We can't fit. They're all the facilities are full. So I'm gonna take my girlfriend for a walk. We're just gonna walk till the phoenix appears in the sky. Whole bunch of fossil footprints. Fossilization is so rare. It's amazing that we found thousands and thousands of examples. So amazing. So amazing. So let's get out of here. Let's get out. We can look at all these all day. There's a giant human footprint and a dinosaur footprint. All right, so done with that. So why is it so hard to believe that the tracks on Malta, the tracks on Sardinia, the tracks on Turkey, the tracks in Arizona, the tracks in Colorado, the tracks in Texas, the tracks in Wyoming, why is it so hard to believe when they're all perfectly uniform and they crisscross each other and there's no evidence whatsoever of any type of draft animals pulling these? Why is it so hard to believe that these are technologically advanced vehicles? These are all-terrain vehicles, and these are the evidence that humans were driving at high speeds at a certain time right before the ground was baked. This is the evidence of my senses. Putting away everything else, just looking at the pictures. Just looking at the pictures. Why is it so hard to believe? Why? We built this 4,800 years ago, and we still can't replicate it today. Why is it so hard to believe? This is a 203 course high building at 454 feet high today. This structure was laser precision perfect tolerances, or we would have never been finished, because every layer had to be perfect for the next layer to be put on top of it, because the layers themselves contained tunnels that were laser precise. Why is it so hard to believe? This is the Grand Gallery inside a 4,600-year-old structure. Grand Gallery had all these same little, look, here's the same track system that you saw on those ruts that I showed you on Malta. It looked like a cog. Look at the precision in the Great Pyramid. It's Technolithic. Why is it so hard to believe that this structure could have been 4,600 years ago and not vehicles, which would have been so much easier to make all-terrain vehicles than it would have been to make this structure? It's 2.3 million blocks, all glued together with an adhesive 1/50th of an inch thick, which has compounds in it that are still not recognizable today. Yeah, this structure is amazing. Great Pyramid. Great Pyramid. Been here all this time. So why is it so hard to believe that vehicles? Look at these tracks right here on the side of the Grand Gallery. I've been telling you for years, there's no reason those tracks are there unless there was a geared wheeled mechanism that went up and down. You got to look at this without the rails. The rails and the stairs were put in there. They aren't a part of the original. This is a track system. And whatever the locomotion was, it used those cog indentations on the side to go up and down this chamber. This chamber's 253 feet long. It's huge. Here's the track system in the Great Pyramid. It too is a cog-based system. There was something that had locomotion was going up and down this facility. Here they are right here. Look how precise they are. Technolithically precise. So why is it hard to believe that we had all-terrain vehicles in the ancient past? Because once you accept that we had all-terrain vehicles, there's nothing on Malta that's a mystery anymore. All those castles and temples and hypogeum and all this megalithic structures, none of it's mysterious anymore. When you conclude that we've been technologically advanced before, there's nothing in South America and all these ancient mystery sites showing all these molds and all this rock that's mysterious anymore, because now we know machines were used to build all these structures, and it wasn't men with copper chisels and copper handles. Remember, if something's true somewhere, it's probably true everywhere. So if we can see evidence that machines were at play in the ancient world, then they were at play many times in the ancient world and in many places. This is inside the Great Pyramid too. This is all Great Pyramid, Technolithic wizardry, absolutely precise. The precision needed and required to build the Great Pyramid is far more superior than building an all-terrain vehicle. It's the Great Pyramid. Yeah, you see these as rough-hewn blocks, but that's their sophistication. They had to be rough-hewn. They had to be like that because this right here is specifically designed to offset the stress of hundreds of millions of tons of rock in the layers above and to distribute that weight outward instead of straight down on top of this chamber. 2,100-year-old computer, the Antikythera computer. If we had different, now this isn't just geared, it's differential geared. This mechanism of the Antikythera computer was absolutely sophisticated even for 1902 when it was finally recognized as being a computer. It was discovered in 1900 in a shipwreck by sponge divers off the coast of Crete. Yeah, this is absolutely amazing, but it only shows that we did have the technical ability to build all-terrain vehicles. Technolithic, we don't even know what these were for. There were molds for some type of technology. We don't know what they were for. Again, here's a end-to-end section of the Grand Gallery with its track system. This is the antechamber in the Great Pyramid. There's the antechamber again in the Great Pyramid. There's the King's Chamber. Here's the beginning of the Grand Gallery with the track going down. Here's the entrance to the Great Pyramid. Here is the Grand Gallery coming up to the Great Step. Here's the antechamber and the King's Chamber. Yeah, this was very sophisticated. These are all different types of stone used, not just limestone. Some of this is red granite. This is the difference. We don't even know what this was for. Solid stone. Ancient Egyptian glyphs that were hidden by the Egyptians themselves underneath a layering of plaster. They didn't understand what they saw. They didn't even know what it was. The Osirion isn't even Egyptian architecture. That's where it's found at Abydos. It's not even Egyptian architecture. It's megalithic. It's like the Temple of the Sphinx. It's like the Valley Temple. It's the same type of architecture. It's megalithic. It is completely devoid of all Egyptian hieroglyphics. The Valley Temple and the Sphinx Temple. But at the Osirion, the Egyptians plastered over what they didn't understand and then put their own hieroglyphics on top of that. The plaster fell off, and that's why we've seen these. Didn't know that, did you? This is found in Texas. This is a fossil tool. It is a small hammer. It's not very big. It's a small hammer, like a detail hammer. But this is a fossilized hammer found embedded in rock. Ain't no animal made it. It's a human. Humans made it. Humans made it. So this is a bee or a wasp, and this is a fish. This person that made this image is showing you that if the bee or wasp and the fish are anatomically correct, then why would we assume that this isn't a helicopter and this isn't some type of vehicle and this isn't some type of aircraft and this isn't some type of aircraft? Why? Why? Of course you would assume it. Great Pyramid again. We don't know what this was. Some type of flywheel. It belongs on a technological device. It's thousands of years old. We don't know anything about it. It comes from an ancient Egyptian tomb. They probably didn't know what it was. This is the inside the Great Pyramid, the ascending passage. Great Pyramid again, extremely advanced. All this is advanced. None of this was originally Egyptian. It's all before Egypt even existed. It's all Great Pyramid. Yeah. So, I mean, I have other videos that show technological parts. I didn't really show them here. Whole bunch of things that just don't make sense from the ancient world unless we had technology. But if we had the technology thousands of years ago to make ballistics, that's a bullet hole. That's a bullet hole. These things have been studied by a lot of researchers. They realized, damn, whatever this projectile was, it was so incredibly fast and powerful. It didn't shatter the skull, didn't blow out the back of the skulls. It just bored through so perfectly. It made an extremely high velocity bullet. That's a human. Here's an auroch. Here's an auroch taken out by a bullet. These are arrows. They can study all around the edge and see basically how high velocity it was. Here's an ancient human skull shot in the head with a bullet. Here's another one shot in the head. Look at the size of the bullet, the caliber. Yeah, most of our bullets aren't near that size. Look at that. This is a human skull that received an injury. And what you're looking at is this human actually survived skull surgery, brain surgery. We don't know. They see in trepanning, which was it's an ancient medical procedure, but when people took a blow to the head in ancient times, to keep the brain from swelling, they would cut a square of the skull out, and some of the brain matter would push out. But it would relieve the pressure, and often the victim would survive. This right here was a successful surgery. How do they know? Because the skull continued to grow around the metal that had been put under the skin to keep the brain tissue inside. This is an ancient, successful, basically a brain surgery. It's lead. Now, again, here is the gaslighting. Here's a bullet hole right here. But here's the gaslighting. They're gonna put this picture of this real primitive looking human and all that stuff. Listen, this pronounced brow that you see here, in this misshapen area of the skull, the slope on the skull. Remember what I told you guys about vapor canopy conditions. They change human anatomy, and they're going to change each human type in different ways. Still 100% human. But inside the human genome, each race has different abilities and different characteristics that come to play under high pressure environment. Changing the pressure of the environment will change what happens to the children when they're born in the new environment. Another bullet hole. It's also evidence that somebody lived for a very long time. Another bullet hole. So we know that humans and prehistoric creatures have commonality, because even from ancient Sumerian times, they were drawing dragons. We don't understand why. Acambaro, Mexico, we have all these figurines of dragon and dinosaur type creatures interacting with humans. We have creatures that look like dinosaurs. Here's like a giant cat type creature eating a man. I've shown these before, so I'm going to go through them pretty fast. But there's 34,000 figurines here of all these dinosaurs and humans interacting with each other in Acambaro, Mexico. And these figurines aren't that old. For sure, they're definitely not millions of years old. They're definitely not hundreds of thousands of years old. Poor bastard there got ate by the head. There's a brontosaurus, clear as day right here. Clear as day. If Native Americans were making ceramic and clay figurines of anatomically perfect triceratops and the humans riding them in relatively modern times, then it calls into question the whole Ice Age narrative. When did the world freeze? These creatures couldn't have survived that. vapor canopy cycles answer for all the anomalies, not in the uniformitarian model of Ice Age. All the glacial errata is described in diluvian mechanics. Yeah, vapor canopies collapse, they cause flooding. The whole mesosphere floods. There's a distribution of all kinds of things, and instantly the poles freeze. Instantly, all that vapor, all the mesosphere falls down and becomes these massive ice caps. Yeah, those ice caps are created within days. They're not created over hundreds of thousands of years. Even today, there's no humidity at the North Pole and at the South Pole. That's why there's no snow. In 1 year's time, there might be a half inch to an inch of snow in the Antarctic or at the North Pole. There's no humidity. And this is where these uniformitarians get the idea that, oh, okay, well, that means that it took hundreds of thousands of years for those snow caps to build. BS. BS. A vapor canopy collapsed and provided the humidity that was needed to create the snow that created the ice pack that goes up that high. And it was done very quickly. And it was the equatorial regions that flooded out, but they didn't freeze. All these creatures. Acambaro, Mexico, all these creatures. But that's not even the real incredible stuff. What's really incredible is the fact that in the medieval period, people saw dragons. They recorded dragons. They built totem poles showing dinosaur-type creatures eating people. Flying pterodactyl-type creatures and dragons flying through the air. This is a common denominator from the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. These are all dated Dark Ages. These are the Ica stones. Humans are interacting with dinosaurs. These are the Ica Peru. Dinosaurs in the Dark Ages and Middle Age period. Dinosaurs in the Dark Ages and Middle Ages period. And what, I'm only using the word dinosaur so everybody understands, but these are just reptiles and amphibians. That's all they are. Here's a brontosaurus. Yeah. Here's a brontosaurus right here. And the label says dinosaurs fighting Inca burial stone, but that's not what's happening here. Ain't no dinosaurs fighting. You got a man wearing a mask riding on the back of a pterodactyl while a brontosaurus watches eating, because a brontosaurus is a herbivore. Humans would have never been scared of brontosauruses. It's like the whale of the land. They would have been hunted to extinction because they're a food source. Look at that. Old Stegosaurus at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. More Ica stones showing anatomically correct dinosaurs. You can't get better than that. Here's the Ica stones. There's Brontosaurus. There's Triceratops. I forgot the name of this one, but he's like the cousin of the Triceratops. So these are cousins of Triceratops. They got that armored plate. Same exact body as Triceratops, but they've got different horn manes. Yeah, man. It's crazy. These are the Ica stones. Here's like a Tyrannosaurus or an Allosaurus about to eat a person. That would have been the only thing really feared. All these others are herbivores. The Ica stones are a lot of detail. Humans didn't just make this up. This is all dated to the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. Exactly where in Archaix we put the last vapor canopy, from the 6th century to the 9th or 10th century. Totem pole showing dinosaur. That's a Native American totem pole showing a dinosaur. Go figure that one out. I got these maps here because, guys, you already know. It's been my argument from the beginning. Graham Hancock is wrong. These 500-year-old maps that show Antarctica ice-free and show the valleys and the mountains where the U.S. Geological Survey says that's where they are. Subsurface interface radar readings show that Antarctica does look just like this. These maps are correct for one reason only. Not because what Graham Hancock says, that they're copies of 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 copies that go all the way back to the Ice Age. No. They're 500-year-old maps that are maybe copies of one or two maps that go back to the Middle Ages and Dark Ages when there was no ice on Antarctica. Why? Because there was a vapor canopy. There is an exchange of moisture in our world between land and sky. It is a cycle. When the sky possesses all the moisture, it is a vapor canopy. The vapor canopy, like Venus. When the vapor canopy collapses, it creates a new legend called a Great Flood. When that happens, the polar extremes, which are already cold, take all that moisture and create snow caps that are 1 mile to 2 miles high, creating the ice pack. It is almost instantaneous. It's all there. It's a cycle. Even recently, so I forgot what it was, but even recently, somebody had published, I think it was Ben Davidson, the Suspicious Observers. He showed some new scientific information that showed that the ice core samples that uniformitarians were formerly telling us was 100,000 years worth of historical data in these ice cores has been re-examined, and now they know it's only 3,000 years of history. Go figure. Been telling you in Archaix for years, the uniformitarians don't know anything. They don't know anything at all about how to date anything that happened in anybody who uses the relative dating models. It's 7 assumptions you have to make in order to believe that stuff to be true. These maps exist because very recently there was a vapor canopy, and during that 400 or 500 year period that we call the Dark Ages and early Middle Ages, navigators were mapping, people were exploring in Antarctica because there was no ice there. When that vapor canopy collapsed sometime in the 900s, sometime around the 900s, that vapor canopy collapsed, or it gradually went away over a period of 50 years to 100 years. I don't know. But in its disappearance, no more traffic toward Antarctica because it became too cold again. Covered in the moisture from the vapor canopy. In the Middle Ages, all about large dragons, all about saints fighting dragons and giant lizards, and these are dated to the Dark Ages right here. Native American petroglyphs, except for the one on the bottom. The one on the bottom is Catalhoyuk, and it's supposed to be dated like 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Supposed to be. Totem poles showing dinosaurs, Ica stones from Peru showing dinosaurs. Here's an Ica stone showing dinosaurs. Dinosaurs and dragons were put on pyramids in Mesoamerica. Cave art that shows dinosaurs. Look at that. Friendly dinosaurs. A friendly dinosaur mug. I got a drunk coffee out of that. Yeah. Everywhere in Native American art. Dated to the Dark Ages and Middle Ages. Angkor Wat, right here in Cambodia. Dinosaur. They didn't just make all this stuff up. This was their lifestyle. You don't make up mugs that you drink out of that have these anatomically perfect lizards on there if they didn't exist. That's a Stegosaurus. Here's your dinosaurs. Dragons or dinosaurs right here. Figurines in North America. Angkor Wat again, anatomically correct Stegosaurus. So I recently showed these all in the video. That's why I'm going through them so fast. Plesiosaur from Australia. Anatomically correct. There's a brontosaurus right there. Look at that. I would love to have that jug. Dated, Mexican picture dated 1200 AD, Middle Ages. These creatures still existed. They still existed to very recent times. Roman sword with a brontosaurus on it. St. George and the Dragon. You guys know we got a lot in the medieval times. They were battling large salamanders, lizards, snakes, dragons, and giant snails. This is what was going on in the Middle Ages. The early church was very different. Christianity was fundamentally different coming out of the Dark Ages. All the saints had supernatural powers. They're like X-Men. All the focus was on the saints and Mother Mary and how they protected the villages from the monsters and stuff. Christianity was very different. Remember, Jesus was Lord of the mushrooms coming out the Middle Ages. Here's a famous painting. You can go watch my other videos for it. Famous painting right there. Brontosauruses. The arrows at the top show you how huge this painting is. This is a blow up of the area of the Brontosauruses. Yeah, man. So get out of that file. Get out of that file right there. Stop sharing. So the tracks, guys, they're fossilized in the same layer facing the sky on stone that looks identical to mud that's been turned to stone. The exact same conditions as dinosaur footprints, the exact same conditions as human footprints. These are tracks. The tracks are unilateral. They're equidistant from each other. They're found in multiple locations. And to me, you can make up your own mind, but to me, they are absolute evidence that we had all-terrain vehicles thousands of years ago, not millions of years ago, because I don't believe dinosaurs were millions of years ago at all. Yeah, they're now finding branched chain aminos and amino acids that are still recoverable from dinosaur bones. Man, come on, man. This didn't happen millions of years ago. It didn't. So that's my take. That is absolutely my take on the tracks. The tracks are of human manufacture. There are no hoof marks. There's nothing to show draft animals. These are vehicle tracks. And at the exact same time in history, when the last vapor canopy collapsed, that's when all this was created. Why am I saying the last vapor canopy? Because it can't be from the Great Flood. It can't be from 2239 BC canopy collapse. It has to be a collapse subsequent to that because it's all on the surface. It's all on the surface. The megafauna, what we call dinosaurs, are just large reptiles and large amphibians, nothing spectacular. But they lived all the way up till the Middle Ages. That means that our Dark Ages period is the period for the last vapor canopy. Because remember, it was 522 AD, which began the Great Justinian Darkness period. But I'm thinking it was a lot more than that. It's the only year in all world history that the Phoenix object and the Nemesis X object were in our skies in the same year. I've shown this in many videos. I've given the whole chronology of Nemesis X and the whole chronology of the Phoenix, and they never in like 10,000 years of history before 522 ever appear together. Never in 10,000 years after 522 do they ever appear together. But in 522 AD, I've shown both chronologies. They're fixed, very, very well documented. And in that year, 522, both of them appeared. And it just happens to be, according to historians, the 6th century AD was the worst century in the world to live in because it was so apocalyptic. I believe that. Because for 400 years, we literally have no history. Remember, in the late 900s and the thousands, all of a sudden, we've got stone castles being built, universities are appearing, urban centers in Europe are all getting populated again. All of a sudden, we have churches and cathedrals that are everything happens at the exact same time, as if there was no progress, as if nothing was really going on. Remember, Christianity was almost fully developed in the 6th century AD. And then all of a sudden, for 400 years, Christianity just falls off and becomes so primitive and comical that in the year 1000, it was Jesus, Lord of the Mushrooms, and saints with X-Men type powers. And then it took 250 years for Christianity from about the year 1000 to actually mature again and get to doctrinal matters and all kinds. It's like Christianity had to develop all over again. It is so bizarre. So anyway, the Native American discoveries on the giant reptiles and giant amphibians, it fills the gap. Now we know it was a vapor canopy world. The world was depopulated in the 6th century. Absolutely depopulated with the Phoenix and the Nemesis X object. And then throughout the 6th century, humans were just barely making it. By the 7th century, reptiles and amphibians and insects, marsupials, everything is now changing. Even humans probably changed a little bit. But a vapor canopy prevailed, and we have almost no history whatsoever of that period. So when it comes to uniformitarian model, there's just there's so many gaps, such as Ice Age. There's no single mechanism that fully explains Ice Age initiations when they started. Scientists can't even agree to it. And when it comes to the relative dating models, potassium argon dating, and there's so many different ones. Radiometric type dating, carbon 14 from William Libby. These assume isotopic decay rates absolutely stable over millions of years of stability, meaning, according to their model, no comet impacts, no times that the atmosphere was weakened. There's no times that the ionosphere was damaged. There's no times the radon belt was compromised, that the isotopic decay rate was perfect for the entire specimen period, meaning there's no cross-contamination with other radioactive materials, meaning that if you're testing something that's 200 million years old, it means that during that 200 million years, there was never a flood that increased radioactivity. There was never an increase in atmospheric pressure that increased radioactive isotopic breakdowns. There was never any time when the atmosphere absolutely collapsed and the radon belt wasn't protecting the world like it was supposed to, and your core sample that you're testing was still immune from all those changes. There were no local novae. There was never a star explosion anywhere in our local vicinity. There was no increase of gamma radiation coming in through the filters of the atmosphere. You have to make so many assumptions. You have to make the assumption that whatever your sample is that you're dating, that the parent isotope had not already broken down to a certain degree to become a daughter element, and whatever trace elements are there of the daughter element, that it didn't corrupt your sample. The assumptions that have to be made to agree to any of the relative dating methods used by uniformitarians is all purely faith. You have to have the faith of a mustard seed in order to believe that none of these things could have altered your sample at all. It is ridiculous. Most uniformitarians don't even know what the process is on the isotopic breakdown of a parent element into a daughter element. When uranium-238 becomes plutonium, whatever it is, plutonium, I want to say plutonium-12, but I could be wrong. But when uranium breaks down into plutonium before it becomes like base lead, to take your sample and then read into that sample a date from ancient times means that you absolutely believe that sample has never, in the 200 million years of history between the time that sample was created and that you found as a fossil, and all the minerals and all the silicates around it, this is your test sample. And in the 200 million years since it came into existence, it's never been contaminated by an outside force, such as all those I just listed. It is moronic to believe that. Yeah, the relative dating methods are, it's crazy. You have to believe, and here's the biggest one. In order to believe in the relative dating models used by the uniformitarians, you must accept that our world has never suffered any cataclysms. No cataclysms have ever happened. You can't admit to cataclysms because cataclysms change air pressure, they change oxygen levels, They change the amount of radiation that comes in from the sky and saturates our world. They change the density of different layers of the atmosphere. It changes our ability of our magnetosphere to protect our world. Cataclysms change everything. Even temperature variations change the isotopic breakdown of a parent element into a daughter element. Uniformitarians have to get you to believe that in hundreds of millions of years, nothing has ever changed. That's what uniformitarian means. Uniform. Everything is uniform. Nothing has ever changed. Because to admit that anything has changed, to admit that a cataclysm has ever happened in the ancient past, means that all test samples are corrupted. Uniformitarianism is stupid. It is so dumb. So dumb. And yet, it's what all these guys are marrying their little pet truther theories to. All of them are marrying it to this whole corrupt soul-killing system. Uniformitarian dating methods presume no major disruptions or alterations to rock layers. Uniformitarian relative dating methods cannot account for the complex geological events like folding, erosion, or tectonic shifts. They rely on presumed evolutionary sequences. That's another thing. In order for you to accurately date and be peer-reviewed and for your dates to be accepted in the scientific establishment, you must first promote evolution and natural selection. If you're not dating things by the evolutionary natural selection deal, you're not going to get published. You're not going to get recognized. You're not going to get peer-reviewed at all. So uniformitarian dating methods aren't even allowed to be published unless you're publishing from an evolutionary perspective. Absolute circular reasoning. Corrupt. It's corrupt. The uniformitarian dating methods all assume consistent rates of species development. And we've never seen that. That's not empirical. It's not even observed. It automatically assumes younger layers are always on top of older layers. Do you have any idea how dumb that is? The only reason they can get away with assuming that is by saying that in the history of hundreds of millions of years, there's never been a cataclysm. Because a cataclysm would account for the folding and buckling of layers. It would account for all that. But uniformitarians are absolute hypocrites, because when it comes to one species of fossil that overturns the uniformitarian stratification data sets, stratification is all the layers of geology that they say that are hundreds of millions of years old. The one type of fossil that completely overturns that whole narrative are polystrate fossils. Polystrate fossils are tree trunks or roots of tree systems that go through multiple layers. Well, that tree didn't take hundreds of millions of years to fossilize. So either the layers weren't there yet and the tree turned to stone and the layers appeared later, which completely overturns the uniformitarian model because that denotes diluvium mechanics. That's a flood. But they can't admit that. So what they say, being total hypocrites, is that anytime you find a tree that goes through multiple layers, it's because earthquakes shook the tree down into those layers. Stupid. It's absolutely bullshit. But what is an earthquake? Earthquake is a fundamental change to geography. It's a part of cataclysmic theory. So the uniformitarians hypocritically borrow from a catastrophist model in order to justify the elimination of the main data that overturns the uniformitarian stratification model. Polystrate fossils. Absolute circular reasoning and complete hypocrisy. That's why I'm telling you right now that anyone using the uniformitarian model is a moron. Absolute moronic. You can't even get around it. You can't even give them the benefit of the doubt. It's like, oh my God, man, really? Did you not think about all this? Did you not process this information? Have you not listened to Archaix and at least took my suggestion to read just one book? Just read one book. If you're a uniformitarian, read one book. It's over 1,000 pages. It's called Evolution Cruncher. It's now been retitled to the Evolution Handbook. And the entire book is nothing but using scientific reports to show that uniformitarianism is dumb. That's it. Just read that one book. You ain't got to do nothing else in life. Read that one book and then come back to the table and rehash all your theories. But until then, I can't. I got to call a spade a spade. If you use the uniformitarian model to date anything, you're a moron. So there's a whole bunch of others. I'm not gonna bore you with all that. There's a whole bunch of other pieces of evidence that show that uniformitarianism is just complete stupid. It's stupidity. It's moronic. But I would just bore you. At this point, my presentation's over. I'm just ranting. I'm just ranting right now. But you guys saw it for yourself. I don't have to try to convince you of anything that you didn't see by yourself. You saw the petrified tracks. They don't deviate. They are uniform. And because they're not just uniform at the track sites, there's multiple track sites found around the world, and they're uniform there too. And there's also tracks that go over tracks. So the pet theories are not true. These weren't tracks. These weren't tracks in the sense that they were made over a long period of time. All these tracks were made in minutes by a single vehicle that passed over. And then another vehicle passed over that and created another track. We're talking about a world not even 15 centuries ago. We're talking about a time period after Rome, but before the Middle Ages, when we had technological sophistication, when we had vehicles in multiple places around the world, when we were driving to save our life right before a vapor canopy collapsed. Many of those, we may be descended from people who were in those all-terrain vehicles who made it to the underground facilities in time. They made it, and we are their descendants. We know somebody made it, or we wouldn't be here today before the vapor canopy collapsed. And when the vapor canopy collapsed, stripping the atmosphere from its ability to protect us from this heat and radiation, which would take weeks, maybe even months to be able to go outside before the atmosphere would have corrected itself. And now this burning disk called the sun is something we see every day. You don't see it in a vapor canopy. In the daytime, the whole sky brights up, but it's blue. But there's no sun because the canopy's so thick. It's just well lit. And then at nighttime, the canopy diffuses and becomes a giant magnifying glass that magnifies the stars, and the moon fills the sky. During the vapor canopy period, nighttime is absolutely beautiful. And even in Native American traditions, one of the common denominators is that said they could hear the stars singing, or they could go, if you could find a hill tall enough, you could reach up and touch the stars. This is Native American traditions. So we have the uniformitarian model basically replacing what has been taken from us. There is a historical period that has been completely eliminated from all records. And it's that 400 or 500 year period of the vapor canopy. Fomenko is not wrong. Anthony Fomenko is not wrong as far as history's been tweaked with. He and I disagree. He thinks there's missing time. I don't believe there's missing time at all. I can show all the time. There's missing history because somebody does not want us knowing about those vapor canopies, or somebody centuries ago didn't want anybody knowing about vapor canopy cycles, because the vapor canopy is the only thing that accounts for all the anomalies. All right, guys, that's my presentation. Turn this AC back on. And C3PO's out. My C3PO mug, he's out. So I'm gonna need to re-up here in a minute. Go outside and get away from this computer for a while. I'm a little taxed today. Thank you guys for joining me. Love you to death. Archaix Underground, sometime today or tomorrow, is going to have 2,600 people. It's still growing. Listen, it is the Truther Hub. It is far more successful than I anticipated. I am so glad about the high quality of people that are entering in, and I'm so glad so many people realize that this wasn't just for our people who follow Archaix. Because we've got so many spaces in there for so much stuff. Those of you who are in our Archaix Underground, Hey, man, leave a comment, man. Tell other people, man, how fantastic it is, because it is. It is an awesome community. It is our own X. It's our own Telegram. It's our own Discord. It's fantastic. And I'm so impressed with the quality of posts and the information people are uploading to it on a daily basis. It's truly become a whole archive of amazing things, far more than the Archaix data. I'm uploading my data to it all the time. I got my own spaces where only I upload Phoenix material, Nemesis X material, Christian, the true history of Christianity material, all that. But other people have their own things going on. They're contributing, and I'm just very impressed with the community. So the link to Archaix Underground is in the description box, and it will be in the pinned comment. And I'll go ahead and even leave you guys with this little old Archaix Underground ad, which may be the last time you see this ad, because Archaix Underground has grown so much, and we've added so many new spaces that even this ad doesn't even accurately cover everything that we have in there. So I thank you guys for being with me, for spending this time with me, and until next time, we will peace out. Let me find that ad. Love you guys. Welcome to the new social media for the freethinker, the platform for those who do not identify with the collective, Archaix Underground. Explore the 30-plus galleries and spaces and interact with kindred souls all over the world, some in your own community. Meet others in Errant's chat underground. See or report what's happening in your part of the world. Find others that are close to you. See services and advertise your own in Errant's personals. Chat with others and share paranormal experiences. Review the massive posts on deep and revealing movies and music that drop real secrets about our world, and look at the health and wellness posts for tips and helps on the human body. You will find hilarious and thought-provoking stuff in meme warfare. Look over and even contribute to the 2026 Isometric Analysis Project and check out the tips and post-reset pantry and survival tips. Some of you will want to join the Archaix Sentinels as we take deep dives into other content creators' paywalls and search for evidence of integrity or grifters lifting others' content. Explore the audio files of Archaix videos and watch the library of Archaix videos that are not on YouTube. Look over and download the fascinating old books of the Underground Vault Library, or dive in and read the hundreds of articles, posts, and transcripts composed in my decades of research. Review the detailed Archaix charts separated by topics easily followed, and read and contribute to the massive library of powerful quotes. You can read and post your own findings on the years 1901, 1902, and 1903 as we build the database, or look over the post in Flat Plane Examine on toroidal mechanics and simulation theory models of the world. Laugh and even contribute to lifestyles of the grifting and infamous, and post your questions that you want me to answer in live videos on YouTube. Get help with all things Archaix in the admin chat, and look over and post your own arts and crafts and talents. Look over the immense data on the Great Pyramid and Chief Cornerstone research, and review book recommendations by other errants, and even post your own. Check out out-of-place artifacts and mysterious history for intriguing facts about our history and world. And in Immortal Methods, see the techniques, affirmations, and practices that have worked for others in their manifestations of their wants. New spaces will be added, one being on the facts of Christianity very soon. Join us in this explosive community of souls, all sharing this experience.